I am so excited today to talk about our topic, which is panic-free platform building. This is a topic that I know so many of our listeners struggle with or are curious about. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity for us agents to have a sort of roundtable conversation about what it looks like to build a platform and the ways that we can go about it in a stress-free way.
It's a great topic. If you're an author that has been multi-published, or you're just getting into the idea of, can I be traditionally published? No matter where you are, you're going to hear the word platform often, and it can set us into a panic mode if we don't realize that there are a couple of things that will make that panic lessen, will help de-stress that. And part of it is that there are many facets to platform. Platform is not just a single number, and it's not even just a number. Debbie, you have more to say on that, don't you?
Yeah, the way I like to coach writers and my own clients is I help them discover what is your personal lane. I know some people call this brand. I like to call it lane because it doesn't feel like such a panic, like I have to get a brand and I don't know what it means to get a brand, but everybody can kind of figure out, what is my lane? What has God called me to? So when they figure out, so for instance, like maybe somebody is called to encourage marriages. Somebody else is called to do devotional thoughts. Some people are making people laugh through funny things that they do in their ministry or their writing. But it's just about finding your lane when you think of how you express it, to just stay true to who you are. Don't try to be anybody else, and start to have some fun with it. So, the thing is social media in general, like that's one aspect of platform. And I know we're going to discuss other things that are platform, but social media is definitely one. We don't want to talk about it because everybody gets so stressed and panicked over it. But what if we turned it around and we reframed it and we thought, how can I do social media in a way that is life-giving because it follows where my heart is leading? So that way, we can create content that we love to create because it's coming straight from our heart, straight from what we're already doing, maybe from our writing or from previous writing. It can actually be fun instead of being so stressful.
Well, and I love how Debbie and Cynthia have kind of walked in the conversation, because platform does make hearts beat faster. I was just teaching at a writers conference, and one of the areas that I noticed right off the bat was similar to Debbie's lane analogy, just helping people understand what platform is at its most basic level, like putting the cookies on the cookie shelf. Because some of the panic is that people are looking at social media, or they are looking at YouTube, or they are looking at different aspects of, or different lanes. And they're like, we don't know. So for me, platform it's that lane. It's who is the audience that is listening to me, and what is the message I'm giving them, and how well am I doing it giving them that message. And so those are the things that help define the lane. Who am I trying to get to? What is it that I'm saying to them? And in some aspects, how well am I doing it? Because is a platform if nobody is listening?
Right. Another thing is you don't have to try to reach everybody. So I like what you said, like, who is my audience and what am I giving to them? So I think that's where the panic comes, is we think like, oh, I have to build a platform. And we just think of this whole wide world, like everybody has to know what I'm having to say. Not everybody cares. Not everybody's interested in what we're doing or what the lane that we're going in, but to find our own audience and serve them well.
No, that's absolutely, those are all excellent points. And I always like to tell writers, if you're writing for everyone, then you are serving no one, at least not in a very effective way. And so really knowing what you have to offer and knowing your reader well enough to know what they're looking for, and specifically what they're looking for from you, because we all have our own unique gifts that we are bringing to the table. And so the more that we can lean into what those are and serve in that specific and unique way, the more readers are going to kind of build your brand for you. And in that, I mean, what they expect from you is going to become so known to them and known to others that it then becomes your brand, kind of without you having to be too intentional or stressed out about it at all, because you're certainly just serving in your lane and serving the people that you're serving without trying to just broaden that net so wide that people are slipping through the cracks.
You know what, Jen, I love that, because I think that is what stresses people out, especially when they're just beginning. Like the thought of, I have to come up with a brand. What? Like, I'm not a clothing line. I'm like they just don't know, like, how do I come up with a brand? How do I brand myself? And so we kind of take that out, even though we really are doing it through finding our lane, but we take that mentality out of it and think of what is the path that God has called me down and stay true to that. So what are some of the like practical things? So like what are some of the different forms of platform besides just social media?
For a lot of people, it might be that they speak often, and the kind of topics that they speak about, there might be a wide variety in them, but there will always be a core message. And that core message for a lot of the people that we deal with in our agency is the Word of God and the God of the Word, practical Christian living, applying the truths of God's Word as well. The interesting thing about that is we're not preaching to build a platform. We preach if we have built a platform. We are able to tell our message to the world. If that platform has, and this is one analogy that we might use, if the platform is the thing we stand on so that the voice is heard above the rest of the noise that's out there. So in essence, almost like the platform were built out of wood. I like to also use the analogy of it being a table that you have set for people for the meal you're about to serve them. And we talked about that a little bit before, but the concept there is that it might be your actual speaking ministry that you have. It might be that you've worked with children for many years in various capacities, and that adds to your ability to speak to the needs of moms or the needs of children. It also might be something like your educational history. Someone can speak to that, I'm sure.
Well, I feel like when we look at what is, and there is for those of us who have kind of this faith lens of looking at the world, it's that question of what is in your hand. What is it that you are naturally in the groove of that's just a part of everyday life? And so when I'm talking particularly with new clients who are trying to get that very first book contract, it's what's in your hand, but it's not exclusively life experiences, because we do have moms and we've got maybe people who've been through anxiety and depression or people church hurt, but it's also thematically like what is the growth area that you're leaning into? Like what's that struggle or what's that felt need? Because in my opinion, if our platform is just based off of our life experience, that's not necessarily transformative. But if our platform can be about where was I and what needed to happen for me to get where I'm at today, that's something that people can anchor into. And so I can talk with a client who perhaps went through a bout of depression. Well, what was happening they discovered the journey from panic to peace. They discovered the journey from grief to gratitude, or they discovered the journey from brokenness to purpose. And so that lane that they're in, like Debbie said, actually they can take a reader from where they were to where they are now, and the reader can then be invited to go on that journey. And that's, for me, a healthy way to build platform.
So how does that show up in platform? How does that show up, say, for instance, in social media or newsletters? Can you get real specific with us, Barb? You do this excellently, by the way.
And I think it really goes back to that journey of, we want to take readers from here to there, and novelists, we want novelists to dial into that as well. I say, for me, what I tell everyone is to look at the people. I call it my rule of three, and I believe I've talked about it before. Look at the people who are doing this already and who are doing it well, and study them. That's what I did, because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I picked 3 authors who were in the same lane as I was in, and they're a little farther down the road. I followed them on social media, I read their books, and I signed up for their newsletter. And so that was a way for me to see how they were doing it, and I would learn from them. Anybody else on the practicals of some things that you would recommend?
I think another way is to listen to what you hear often from people about what you are writing. So if there is something that you keep hearing over and over again about, I really love how you always bring hope into the equation, or I really love that you make me laugh every day, or I really think that that you're writing about panic, for example, boy, it really just keeps me calm and focused on God. These, I think, are some clues that you can use to really consider and evaluate what your lane is. Because like I said before, whether you're conscious of it or not, you are sort of building that as you go through what you are providing people to read. And so when you see this consistent theme of what people are noticing that you are writing, sometimes we're blind to our very own things that we're doing, right? We're too close to it. We can't see that there's a common thread through what we are writing or what we are communicating. So I think you can also kind of look outward toward if you're receiving comments on a post of yours on social media or something that went viral. Really think about, what was it about that made it fly? You know, what was it that drew people's attention to me? And so the more you can build off of that, understanding that it's in line with where you want to go, I think that's a really good way to kind of discern what your giftings are through what other people are noticing and seeing in you and what you're doing.
And Jen, if I could step in here, what you've just described also is something that editors care about. And that's why it's important to say that. Because we're finding that when editors see that we know how our readers are responding, that really registers strongly with the editors considering your project. Now, and let's make sure, we're going to make sure that we're including novelists in this as well, because it applies across the board. With novelists, it may be a little bit different, but it may be that the engagement they're getting on whether it's social media or the responses to newsletter, or how many opens or clicks throughs did they get on that newsletter subject as compared to some others that they had that they've sent out. That's going to help them, the author, find out where they really are reaching people, but also then it will help the editors know they know their stuff in this arena. How are people responding? But that's also part of the getting rid of the panic, is because part of platform building is when the people who follow you are inviting other people to follow you, when they're sharing what you have posted because it is so lifted their spirits, or it is so helped them understand a tough concept, or it is so blessed them in that day. Or even when we as authors are saying, who do you know in your friend circle that needs to hear this message today? So those shares are building your platform in a, what's the word that I'm thinking of, where it's a passive way. It's passive, but it's not at all passive from God's perspective.
So regarding platform, how important is a newsletter?
I'm going to go 10 toes in on it, simply because I believe that a newsletter, social media offers this open forum where people can comment on everybody's ideas and people can interact. And I think there's a place for that. But for authors, what we want is for our audience to feel deeply connected to us. And so when we send out a newsletter, it can look like a variety of things. It can look like a resource, or it can look like an update. It can look like a devotion. But readers can then click reply and know that you're the only person that's seen their response. And so you can build this level of, and when I say intimacy, it is this level of just between me and you connection that you can't really do any other way. So I'm going to say that that's the best way of building platform, because I feel like that's the best way of serving. And I feel like it's such a beautiful opportunity for us to live out the message of the book that we want to write, the book we have written, in a way that really shows people they matter. That's me.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. Oh, go ahead, Debbie.
Oh, so in regards to that, how would somebody go about getting people to join their newsletter? What are some of the things they could do to let people know that they have a newsletter so they can get started with that as a part of their platform building?
So one thing I always tell writers is that as much as we would love for people just to flock to our subscriber link and join in, they need a reason a lot of times. And so if we can offer something that we call a lead magnet, which is basically just a freebie, something that they are going to get in return for providing their email address to you, that is one really great way to drive people to your subscriber link. You know, for a novelist, that might look like a small novella that you've developed or a short story to give them a taste for the kind of writing that you do. For nonfiction, it might be a how-to or a sort of list that you can provide them for something for them to accomplish or do. It could really be anything that you feel like your readers would enjoy, and that it would bring them to that point of signing up for your newsletter. One of the other ways that I think is a really wonderful way to grow your email list in a broader way is to join arms with other writers or others that are in the same or on the same level with you, same spot in the path to growing the platform, and create a sort of giveaway. So maybe that means that all of you, if none of you have published books yet, maybe you are providing your giveaways in sort of a bundle or something like that, something that seems really attractive to people and introduces you to their platforms and vice versa. And so it's one way that you can just kind of multiply your resources and getting that exposure. I look at giveaways as sort of the loaves and fishes version of platform building, because it really just multiplies upon itself and does things that are really unexpected in my opinion. I've seen great growth in my own personal email list just through giveaways and that sort of thing.
I also love the idea that the newsletter can go deeper. Most of our other social media connections with readers or potential readers can only go so far, because there's only so much space for so much time in that short form. And even though we don't necessarily depend on a newsletter to go as deep as the book is going to go, if our newsletter is providing more than what they can get on social media, they'll want to follow us on our newsletter as well. So we will be continually steering them at a different time than what they would just find accidentally on social media, but intentional, but also the ability to go just a little bit deeper with this core group. Others have said before that really your newsletter is part of the way that you take care of your congregation.
Love that. Really love that. Yeah, that's good.
Beautiful.
So like with social media, it's important. Consistency is important. So if you just post once a week, you can't really expect much to happen, but it's consistently posting, having a rhythm to your posting, because then you keep showing up more often and also sharing in stories, not just on your feed. But so So that's social media. But with a newsletter, then, how often would you suggest that somebody puts a newsletter out?
Well, I'm wondering, since we're running on time, I wonder if we should actually talk about that as a whole separate episode, because that is such a big deal. What do you ladies think about that?
Yeah,
That's
that sounds great.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, ladies, for once again talking with all of us together about this really important topic. Hopefully, we have accomplished our goal of helping people to feel a little less panicked about building their platform. I hope that all of our listeners and watchers, if you're on YouTube, will continue to the discussion in the comments. And we look forward to our next episode.